I've said it before and I'll say it again. Black banks have the opportunity to be the single biggest form of salvation for Black America in the economic crisis that most of Black America is in and it is headed to. When it comes to the financial literacy gap, the underbanked and unbanked gap, when it comes to access to financial resources, when it comes to access to capital, so on and so forth, access to quality relationships and networks, Black banks have the opportunity to be a serious salvation for Black America. And I'm here to tell you that I believe, based on my assessment as a banker, that AI, unfortunately, may be the complete nail in the coffin for the small remainder of Black banks in this country. And it's probably not going to be for the reasons that you may be assuming initially hearing me say that statement. So I want to give you some additional context really quickly on why I believe Black banks have the opportunity to be so important for upward mobility financially for Black America. The areas that Black America is lacking in financially and economically are plentiful. We have the largest deficit in financial literacy. We're the most unbanked and underbanked. We have the poorest FICO scores or credit scores. We have the least access to capital. We own the least amount of real estate. We operate and scale the least amount of businesses, and the list goes on. We're in bad shape in this country. We can get into the weeds of how the hell we got there. I think most of us have enough context to know. And I think many of us are still focusing on why we're there right now from not the most productive angle. And I'm here to tell you that financial resources and navigating the financial system effectively can help us rebound tremendously. Black banks have the opportunity to cover almost every single one of those markers that I just mentioned a second ago. They have the opportunity to be a tremendous assistance in closing the financial literacy gap, to closing the underbanked and unbanked gap, to closing the gap in the FICO credit scores, to closing the gap in access to capital, closing the gap in home ownership, closing the gap in business ownership. And again, the list goes on. Black banks have the opportunity, and this does not mean that we shouldn't be navigating and accessing other financial institutions and resources. For sure, there's 4,700 plus financial institutions in this country. There's only like less than 50 that are Black, maybe even less than 30 at this time of this recording. And I'm also not promoting divisiveness when I say this. What I'm simply saying is that without racism, without prejudice, every single group in this country has their own, but Black America. Every other group in this country has their own at proper scale and proportion when it comes to their own attorneys, insurance, banking, you name it, whatever institution or form of infrastructure that's needed to keep a group or a community going and to keep them thriving, successful, and healthy. They have it for themselves. They still engage with the other ones outside of their group, but they focus on their own group first, without racism, without prejudice. That is what Black America needs, because we, just like any other group, are going to understand each other, our needs, the context of our circumstances, and what's needed to elevate us the most. We can't rely on external sources in entirety or even primarily, because other entities and groups will be limited in understanding what it's going to take to assist us and help us grow and develop. We have to take the lead, and then we can work in conjunction and partnership at a level playing field with other groups and institutions. I hope that made sense. I hope that neutralized any concerns of gaslighting or divisiveness. That aside, now let's focus on the crux of the matter. AI is coming in a very heavy way in our economic system, financial system, the banking system, and in our society as a whole. AI is completely promoted as an assistance to humankind's function. And there's going to be no greater pairing of that than private companies, corporations, and even governments with AI. They're going to be the best examples of collaboration, not replacement, but collaboration between AI, artificial intelligence, and human function. That having been said, why do I believe that this is actually going to turn out to be not true for Black banks and turn out to be a detriment for Black banks? Let's break down what it takes for financial institutions to stay in existence and grow and scale in the first place. Quick reminder, there's 46 to 4,700 plus financial institutions in this country of some variation or kind. That includes private banks, credit unions, etc. Black banks literally make up less than 50 at the time of this recording. Put context on that. That's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. For a population in this country that's the size that we are, there's a projection of somewhere between 13 to 15 million of us in the United States that's documented. And we have less than 50 financial institutions across the country that are for us, by us. I'm going to let you sit on that for a second. Now, let's get to the crux of the matter of what it takes for these financial institutions to be in existence, stay in existence, and grow and scale so they can reach more of our communities. Banks need healthy client relationships. They need healthy collaboration and conjunction of technology. And they need healthy deposit relationships. They need healthy borrowing relationships. When it comes down to the client portion of what makes up a bank's business, right? Individuals and businesses, they need very healthy clients. They need very healthy clients in order for any financial institution to survive, stay alive, take the shocks that the system throws at it. Like right now, interest rates are higher than they've been in over 20 years. That has collapsed multiple banks in the last few years. That's putting downward pressure on financial institutions. How do the ones that are sustaining or even growing during this time doing it? They're acquiring market share and they're getting more value out of their existing clientele base. They're leveraging technology to be more efficient and to make their client relationships more profitable. Black banks, when AI continues to roll out, AI is already projected to displace 20 plus 30% of jobs in the next 5 to 7 years, and that number is going to scale. Who do you think is going to be disproportionately affected by that massive unemployment wave when it comes? AI is going to make everything around us faster. Who's going to be having a harder time keeping up with the financial system and the overall system and society as a whole as that rolls out and expands? Who do you think is going to be at the biggest deficit, at the biggest loss to AI? Because there's no infrastructure or institution within our community helping us to integrate or merge with AI effectively to keep from being at the detriment of AI. Does that make sense? So what's going to end up happening to black banks is not that black banks themselves will have a poor relationship with AI. That's not going to be the problem. Black banks are like any other functioning business, company, corporation. They have that systems infrastructure. To become a bank at all in this country is not easy. So that's not going to be the problem. Is going to be their adoption. Where AI is going to end up wiping out or further diminishing or pushing the extinction of black banks is going to be the clientele base that black banks need to survive and grow. They're going to displace, it's going to displace our businesses. It's going to put us out of work. It's going to give us, it's going to facilitate a faster, basically decline in financial health and well-being in us as individuals, households, communities, and businesses. It's going to hit us the hardest. It's going to be, it's not going to be for everybody. There's clearly going to be black Americans that are going to thrive in this system, just like there is right now. There's some black Americans, we all on the internet, we're all on social media. We know that there's people out there doing phenomenal in the financial system right now. But that is a very small niche of black America. The majority of us, if you look at the statistics and then look around your own community, you don't have to look far, are struggling, or we're on the cusp of struggling. We're one life event, one financial event away from struggling. Black banks need black individuals, black families, black households, black communities, and black businesses to thrive themselves. And AI is going to crush well over 50% of black America. Most of us are already hanging on by a thread, are already under the wheel anyway. But the remainder of us that are still in the workplace, we just experienced a political shift that displaced tens of thousands of black jobs in the government. What do you think is going to happen with AI that's going to have much broader scale, scope, and reach than a new incoming president and administration? And a couple strokes of a pen for executive orders and the ending of certain agencies. AI is going to be much broader in scope. The unemployment impact is going to hit us the hardest. What do you think that's going to do to your banking relationships that you do have? What do you think that's going to do to your credit, your cash flow, when you can't afford anything and you start to default? What happens to already poor or already lower than anybody else FICO scores on average by median? What do you think that does to already the most declined group of people for access to capital and lending products? We already get the most denials of any group of people. What do you think is going to happen when AI rolls out and it becomes more sophisticated in underwriting? When it comes at more sophisticated in doing background checks and banking checks? Because the small sliver of us that are getting access to capital right now, a decent portion of that group is getting it through finessing. Let's just be honest. The entire credit and funding space, over 50% of the content creators and the content put out in that space is nefarious, is under the radar, is these backdoor strategies and hacks. There's not many of us that are actually talking about legitimate ways to build a financial track record and resume that leads to getting access to capital and getting approved by banks legitimately. There's not many of us out there. So when you take the small slither of us that's already struggling, that's getting that success and access and capital, and cut out a certain portion of those because now underwriting has become more sophisticated. Technology has become more sophisticated. You can't hide, manipulate, and lie about things that you were able to hide, manipulate, and lie about before. You can't gross up your income, on a synthetic basis the same. You can't, hide and synthesize your banking relationships and act like you got all this money coming in when you really borrowed it and all this other ish. What do you think home ownership rates are going to look like when AI comes in on top of all of the other things that are pushing against the average American, let alone Black Americans? What do you think happens when that comes in and creates that disturbance in the employment of many of us? What do you think happens to home ownership rates when homes are not going to get any cheaper anytime soon, if at all? What happens when the financial system shifts and AI is rolling out at the same time and everything's getting more expensive, wages are staying the same, and AI is coming in disturbing your job stability? How the hell do Black banks survive when their core customer base that they're targeted towards is drowning? So the small percentage, the fraction upon a fraction upon a fraction of Black banks that exist that are holding strong right now are in serious trouble the next 5 to 10 years. And the direction that a lot of us are headed with our focus, with our financial situations, how the financial literacy issues that are leading to other bad financial habits, the fact that many of us are still taking a little bit of financial literacy that we're focusing on and taking the time out to engage with and using it to find shortcuts and backdoor strategies and hacks that will not yield long-term results. We can't put the deposits in the bank. We can't qualify for loans and grants that will help us access home ownership, access business ownership, and fund businesses that will grow our communities and pour back into those financial institutions so those financial institutions can pour back into the community and the community can continue to grow and more businesses and more homeowners come and they go back into the institution and that cycle continues. We can't do that once AI comes in and disrupts the little bit of success we're having with employment, with our income, and accelerates the financial system, which is going to lead to more inflation, wage stagnation, etc. Black banks are going to fall and collapse under the weight and the destruction of Black Americans because Black banks will not have any other group of people that's going to give a damn to prop them up. Nobody's going to come swooping in to save Black banks. If that was the case, where have they been? We had more Black banks in the 1920s and 30s than we have today in this country. Even though on paper and in the real world, we're freer and better able to engage in a financial system than we were in the 1920s and 30s when Jim Crow was live and thriving. So Black banks are going to suffer under AI and potentially even go extinct because Black Americans are going to struggle under AI and get wiped out. And if you resonate with this message, then my encouragement for you is to personally do your best to be in the best financial position possible, to impact your family, to have some impact on your community. And to all of us need to, including myself, need to do a better job engaging, connecting, and supporting Black banks. Because if anybody's going to give a damn about closing the gap on financial literacy and closing the wealth gap in this country, Black banks are our best shot. For us, by us. Comment down below and let me know what your relationship with black banks are like right now. Do you bank at any black financial institutions? If so, name who they are and what that experience has been like. Let me know what other plans, strategies, or solutions you have around supporting black banks as the transition comes in economically and technologically with AI. Comment down below. To all my pioneers, welcome back. To my new viewers, welcome in. Like, comment, share, subscribe, boost the video, support the channel so this channel can continue to support you. Other than that, I want every single one of you to stay focused, stay in motion. I'll see y'all soon.